you ready to go?
Yeah, thank you.
I'll ask. We're now live.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Planning Committee. For those who've not attended a meeting previously, this is a meeting in public, not a public meeting. That means that visitors are allowed into the council chamber to listen to the meeting, but they may not call out. If this happens, I will adjourn the meeting and, if necessary, clear the public from the chamber. During the meeting, each item on the agenda will be taken in turn and will be determined on its merits in line with planning policy and law. First, the case officer makes their opening presentation about an item, and then if there's a member of public who's registered to speak about the item, they'll be invited to come to the podium and can speak for up to 3 minutes. Members of the committee can then ask questions of fact only about what the speaker said to clarify a point. The speaker must give brief factual answers, and if we have another speaker, the same thing happens. And then the members of the committee may ask questions of the planning officers for clarification of anything to do with that item. When all the questions have had a response, the case officer's recommendation to approve or refuse the item and the reasons must be debated by the committee. Each member of the committee may speak just once in the debate. They may not ask further questions. When those members who wish to speak have done so, then a formal vote is taken to clarify whether the recommendation is accepted. Okay, so we have quite a full room, thank you. Is there any apologies?
I've received no apologies, Chair, but I can see that Councillor Zahurdin is online. If Councillor Zahurdin, you could confirm you can hear us.
Yes, Councillor Zahurdin joining online. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. And we have 2 public speakers. Are you? I think James already checked whether you're here and you're able. Great. See you later. The minutes, to approve last month's minutes as a correct record. The previous meeting held on the 11th of September 2025. Do we have any questions of accuracy on the minutes, please? No? Okay. Are you okay if we take those as a correct record? All those in favour?
That's unanimous.
Thank you very much. Now, declarations of interest. We have only one couple. Would you like to declare your interest, please?
Thank you, Chair. Just in regards to item 5, as per the last time this came before this committee, I need to declare an affected interest as I've provided professional services to the
I
developer.
can't hear you very well.
Oh,
sorry.
Just with regards to item 5, I need to declare an affected interest as I have provided professional services to the developer in the last 2 years.
Okay, thank you very much. Does he need to leave the chamber? Oh, sorry, I'm throwing my pen about. Sorry, thank you. Yes, so you will need to leave the chamber and we'll try to remember to bring you back in. And Councillor Temperton.
Yeah, item 5, I was involved in the discussion with the residents at that meeting we had. So I think I will not be able to vote, although I understand I've been given advice that I can take part in the discussion, but I will not be able to vote because there's predetermination really, because I was there throughout that meeting with the officers and the residents.
I think it's that you make an abstention rather than don't vote at all. Thank you. Is that right? Yeah. And yeah, we can't just exclude your vital information. Thank you. Any other declarations of interest, either pecuniary or disclosable, or affected? I beg your pardon, there's nothing else, is there? Lovely. Any other urgent items of business?
None that I've been notified, Chair. And
Okay. Take that other. When do I take that other?
you can do it now if you want.
Okay.
Whenever you...
Right, yeah. Okay, before we start, I do have an outstanding matter on last month's planning meeting, and I think everybody, all the councillors were concerned about what happened with the houses, the actions that were taken, and the residents were unaware, and everything was a scramble to regularise it, which we did. But all sorts of ill feeling arose as a result, and we haven't had any sort of apology. Oh, I don't know if anybody else would like to comment, but I was wondering if we should send a letter from us councillors to just remind Taylor Wimpey that actually there should be some kind of apology to residents and so on. Councillor Virgo.
Sorry, no sharks, I haven't got a mic. I absolutely would like to back your point, Madam Chair.
Could you switch on the mic, because those online...
Yes, sorry, I didn't have a
Lovely.
mic at the time, so there you go.
Thank you.
Councillor Virgo, I'd just like to completely... I'll wait till you're finished.
Sorry. Yeah, I'll let you do a brief point, but the point is that we just need agreement that we'll get together after this meeting to work out what to say and write a letter.
Well, you were asking for comments, that's why I commented. I wouldn't have
Yes, I'm
gone
sorry.
on the mic.
I'm-
But I would say, just to everyone in this room, I don't think it was a disruptive meeting, I suppose. But I have to say, we've never quite hit that kind of problem in this since I've been doing this
No,
in the way. So I think,
that's
you know,
absolutely right.
everyone pulled together on this committee in order to find a solution. So I think that should be said.
Yeah.
The other point I would say is you're absolutely right, Madam Chair. I think we should do something after this meeting because it's not regrettable. It's outrageous, actually, that professional builders should do this. So I think we need to put that in writing.
Thank you. I think you say that on behalf of all of us, really. So all those in favour that we write a letter? I think that's everybody. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to the first item of this agenda. Excellent. We're actually taking item 2 first because we have our public speakers for this item, the Beaufort Park. Okay, so can we have the officer's report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Margaret McKevitt presenting this item. This is an application to discharge Condition 10 of Planning Permission 23-00767 FUL, which seeks to approve the arboricultural method statement, which is a scheme for the protection of retained trees on the site. This application has been reported to the Planning Committee because more than 5 objections have been received. The extent of the tree removal on the site was approved under the planning application. The plan on the site, I'm sure will recall, the green area shows the extent of development and tree removal. The yellow areas of the site are where trees are to be retained and safeguarded, and the blue areas are the SANG and biodiversity safeguarding land. The AMS provides instructions for protection measures around trees to prevent the unauthorised loss of or damage to trees intended to remain, and that's trees both on the site and off the site, particularly in the adjacent evergreen site. In addition to the tree clearance area, which is the hatched area on the majority of the site, The document identifies a 5 metre second stage, which is identified in the coloured purple areas. This is the area to protect trees to be retained on and off-site, and it's where the area where trees will be marked and cleared using hand tools rather than the harvester that will do the mass tree clearance on the main parts of the site. Since this application was submitted, the boundary between the site and the adjoining Taylor Wimpey site has now been clarified. We were made aware at quite a late stage of some boundary dispute and needed clarification on the boundary. This has now been clarified, and I believe both parties are in agreement on that. Trees within the Beaufort Park site shown to be felled will ultimately still be removed within the second stage of the felling zone, but there will be individually marked trees. Hand tools only will be used to ensure that there will be no overspilling of felling and no damage to trees outside the site. And along the boundary of the site with the evergreens, trees will be individually marked to prevent those incursions into evergreens during the tree felling site, and mesh fencing will be erected along the site boundaries to clearly identify the agreed boundary. And the second stage in the document, the construction phase, when trees have been felled, tree protection fencing will be erected along the site boundaries to protect the trees, and a construction exclusion zone is shown within the document. On this plan, it's shown as the black line, which is within the site boundary. This fencing will be in place to protect trees during the entire construction period. And this zone runs along the boundaries of the Beaufort Park site with evergreens, and also along the South Road boundaries and the boundary of the proposed SANG, and also along the 9 Mile Ride site where trees are retained on the buffer. This exclusion zone has been revised in the latest version of the AMS to reflect this revised ownership boundary. And as members may be aware, and I'm sure residents certainly are, prior to discharge of this condition, tree removal works commenced on site contrary to the requirements of Condition 10. And the applicant was advised to stop works pending discharge of this condition. And during these tree removal works, 9 trees in the southern part of the adjoining Evergreens development outside the application site red line were removed without the permission of the landowner. These trees were within the area W8, which is the southern area in green of the site. Here. And they were in the section of W8 south of Evergreens. No tree protection methods had been agreed or were in place at that time. And the submitted AMS has been amended to give greater clarity on how trees to be retained will be protected to prevent further incidents. The discharge of this condition does not seek to give permission to remove any trees within evergreens, and it does not seek to agree any replanting scheme for evergreens to replace trees already lost. This will be considered in a separate revised landscaping scheme to be submitted and determined for the evergreen site, and that would have to be submitted by the applicants for that site, not the applicants for this condition discharge. Evergreens is a separate planning unit, and changes within that site cannot be made as part of the discharge of this condition. The tree officer has no objection to the discharge of the condition and is satisfied with the contents of the AMS. A supplementary report has been prepared, setting out details of additional letter of representation received and clarifying that a previously reported boundary dispute between the site and adjoining line has now been resolved. The recommendation is to discharge Condition 10, with plans to be approved listed in the supplementary report. And in addition, as a verbal update, an informative is proposed to be added to any decision, which would read that the applicant is advised that the tree protection measures are required to remain in place for the duration of construction works as set out in the AMS. If any rearrangement is required to facilitate the implementation of the planning permission, a revised AMS will be required. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So can we take our first speaker, the objector, Georgina Cusack? You know the routine, don't you? So I have to give you 3 minutes and give you a 20-second warning when it's 20 seconds left. Great. Just get my timer sorted. Oops, that's not going to work. Here we go. Are you ready? Thank you.
Good
Start.
evening, Chair and members of the committee. As a resident of the Evergreens, I'm objecting to the discharge of this condition due to the serious impact the Hill Group's tree removal strategy will have on our trees. The AMS proposes removing all trees up to our boundary. This would expose the remaining evergreens trees to wind and root damage, likely leading to their removal on safety grounds, trees that currently provide vital screening and amenity. Even Hill acknowledges this risk. In their letter dated the 28th of August, they state remaining Scots pine trees in W8 to be independently assessed for retention. Any proposed losses are subject to a separate application by Taylor Wimpey. This is not hypothetical, it's a documented consequence. Yet despite amended AMS versions, no comment from the Council's tree officers have been uploaded, none address the risk of collateral trees within the evergreens. The AMS itself admits the existing pine trees that form part of the Taylor Wimpey site that protrude into the Hill site will need to be removed due to loss of companion shelter and sudden exposure to prevailing wind conditions. So, why is Hill not working within the parameters they've been given? I'm not objecting to this development, we're past that, but protecting the boundary was part of the agreement. If they can't do that, they'll need to build fewer homes. The housing that we need will still be met while preserving the sheltering tree line that defines Bracknell Forest. Let's be clear. This council is now on public record as being aware that felling up to the boundary will trigger further tree loss. Given that planning approval includes a protected tree line between developments, it's incumbent upon this committee to take appropriate measures to preserve it. Hill's now submitted a non-material amendment, changing house types. The boundary is smaller than assumed, garden sizes are now way too small, and they need to be adjusted, meaning they're adjusting the layouts of their homes. This could actually save more trees. Approving the condition now allows felling to proceed under outdated plans. What's needed is a resubmission based on the correct boundary. Finally, I don't need to remind you of your unauthorised felling completed by the Hill Group, which you've already heard, and public outcry and MP intervention, and a formal apology from Hill Group. This shows the real risk of boundary breaches. I urge you to require a council officer to be present during any boundary tree works to prevent further harm. In summary, approving this application as it stands risks the health of our trees, undermines planning policy and sets a dangerous precedent, one you've already experienced in this small group of land in Bracknell Forest. The risks are acknowledged, mitigation is absent. Please uphold good planning principles, protect our boundary and ensure garden sizes meet policy and require a revised scheme before discharging this condition. Thank you.
Well done, thank you. Okay, do members have questions of fact for Ms Cusack, please? No questions at all. I think that must have been nice and clear. Thank you. May we have Carl Schroeder for the Hill Group, please, to respond? Thank you. And when you start, you have to press the button to, yep. I'll give you 3 minutes and I'll give you a 20-second warning when there's just 20 seconds left. But you have to finish at the end of 3 minutes. I'll just sort this again. This is so annoying, I'm afraid. Are you ready? Yep. Thank you. Start.
Good evening, my name is Carl Strutter. I'm speaking on behalf of the applicant, the Hill Group. Our scheme obtained planning permission on the 19th of December 2024. This discharge of Condition 10 application was validated on the 30th of December 24, 12 weeks before any work started on site. Since receiving the initial comments from the tree officer on the 23rd of April, we have responded promptly to all of the LPA's requests. We are pleased to confirm that our tree protection methods put forward in this AMS fully meet the requirements of the tree officer following significant scrutiny and positive discussions with Taylor Wimpey. Condition 10 wording requires a scheme for the protection of the retained trees in accordance with the tree works plan submitted in the main application, with the extent of tree removal being agreed in that application by the impact assessment. As the planning officer has stated, this application is not to determine the extent to which trees are removed. As identified in the AMS, all trees along the boundary with the evergreens will be individually marked by the arboriculturist, and we have offered for this to be checked by Taylor Wimpey representatives prior to any felling. In addition to the methods enclosed in the AMS, we have also committed to erect secure mesh fencing along the boundaries before any tree removal takes place in those areas, and we will then reposition this fencing as tree protection fencing, thus ensuring that no boundary encroachment may occur and that the retained trees are protected throughout the construction process. The protection and inclusion of trees on all of our developments is a matter of priority for the Hill Group. In addition to ongoing negotiations with Taylor Wimpey regarding the area to the southwest of the evergreens, the Hill Group has committed to planting additional 9 trees along the eastern boundary of the evergreens within the proposed rear gardens. And we have since carefully selected over 30 established native broadleaf trees for retention along the boundary to South Road, which were previously approved for removal in the impact assessment. We understand this is welcomed by Tree Officer, Case Officer and Taylor Wimpey. We'd like to briefly highlight the further enhancements that our scheme will also deliver, namely the planting of over 500 mature trees, 200 specimen shrubs, and vast amounts of hedgerows, which all help to contribute towards a 30%
20 seconds.
biodiversity net gain, despite the loss of the monoculture Scots pine. We believe this application represents a responsible and positive approach to the need to protect retained trees, maximising the number that can be safeguarded, whilst also allowing our consented scheme of much needed housing to go ahead. We respectfully ask members to support the application.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's the 3 minutes. Thank you very much. Members, questions for Mr. Schroeder, please. Councillor Virgo.
Thank you. Good evening. You explained to us about the tree officer. Has our tree officer agreed with those trees with your group that should be removed? Has there been some agreement, or is it all through emails and, because there's been some, obviously, ones which have been taken away, which the residents are absolutely annoyed with. Has there been a much more further scrutiny of the trees that we are now concerned with, and that's been verified by Bracknell Forest?
Yes, there has been. Perhaps it might be a response for the tree officer when ready. But yes, there has been scrutiny on site. We physically walked the entire tree group reviewing those trees in question.
Thank you. Any Councillor Kenzie Boyle?
And giving your side. Tell me, what interaction have you had with the residents? Have you spoken to them about the boundaries and about what you're going to keep and the possibility of things that might just get taken away?
So obviously, given a site of, I think, 69 properties, we haven't spoken to every individual resident. A number have reached out to our customer care team, which we provided responses to every time, but we prefer that communication goes through Taylor Wimpey, because obviously they have the contact details for everybody on that scheme, and they can obviously contact them directly.
Thank you.
So,
sorry.
may I supplementary?
Yeah,
thank you. With all due respect, you haven't actually gone to all of the residents who are impacted.
Through Taylor Wimpey, we've advised on when the works will happen and what works will happen. We don't have the contact details for every resident to make that contact.
Okay, just very quickly, then we are relying on Taylor Wimpey.
For what element, sorry?
Yeah, I think that is clear. Thank you. Councillor Temperton, please. No,
Hang on, Taylor Wimpey.
it is
For-
clear.
okay.
I think we've understood that. Councillor Temperton, please.
I'm going to shout because I've got a microphone. I'm sure
I can hear you well.
Those online can't hear you if you don't have a microphone.
online. I'm not going to shout. I'm going to talk to you through here. I'm really pleased you're providing mature trees, but there is an issue with mature trees in that they have a history of dying quite quickly because of the roots and the lack. They need careful watering, not flooding, but they need careful watering. And it's much easier, though it's horrible for everybody, to put in those little whips which have a really, really good root foundation, but they take 20 years to grow. So I understand, and it's good that we're having mature trees planted, but what is your programme to make sure that they survive, please?
So the details for the landscape management plan will be agreed with the landscaping proposals, which are yet to be submitted. But of course, it's in our interest as much as anybody else to protect those mature trees that we've paid to plant. So watering regimes will be suitable to ensure that they establish.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else have a question for Mr. Stredder? No? Oh.
No, I'll leave the questions for the officer, sorry.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes.
Sorry, I was going to ask what the tree officer really feels the assessment of
Yeah,
the health of the existing
hang
trees.
on, that's for the officer question. So hang on a mo, we're nearly there. Okay, so thanks for the speakers. We're now questioning the case officer and the other experts here and online. Thank you. Do you have? Shall we start with you, Councillor Penfold?
Okay. What the assessment of the tree officer is on the health of the remaining pine trees in particular, which might be left rather isolated and badly affected by winds and etc.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Through you, Chair, although we do have our tree officer here as well. I think the trees in question are outside this site. They are in the Evergreen site, and that will be the subject of a separate application following tree surveys. If the applicant feels that there are issues with their trees, we would expect a tree survey to be carried out to look at the health of trees on the site, and that would have to be accompanied by a tree planting scheme as a variation of the agreed landscaping on evergreens. We don't have that yet because we don't have that application in. We're considering here protection of trees on the hillside, not any subsequent effect on trees and need for replanting on the evergreen site.
Right, thank you.
May I ask one then? Is there any, I should perhaps ask Mr. Stredder, any cooperation between the hillside, the Hill Group and Taylor Wimpey as to which of the Hill Group trees should be left in order to safeguard those on the boundary of the Taylor Wimpey site? Please.
Chair, of course, the application for the Beaufort Park Hill Group site did look at the removal of trees. I think the issue is more, we are looking at retention of trees along Nine-Mile Ride and South Ride and along the Sang, of course, but also of concern, I think residents tonight have expressed along the Evergreens boundaries. I have been on site together with our tree officer and arboriculturalist from both Taylor Wimpey and the Hill Group to walk the site and to discuss what that programme would be of when Taylor Wimpey would need to survey their own trees, and any implications of that of when they would then have a programme for any tree planting. So there has been cooperation in the sense of I've certainly been on site with them as a tree officer with both parties, and I imagine they've been talking between themselves as there have been concerns about where the mutual boundary lay. That has needed mutual work between the two parties.
That's useful, thank you. Councillors. Councillor. Oh,
Just
Councillor
carrying on
Hayes.
from there, will we, with the process of this, will we be informed on the dates when they're working and be there for inspection? Because this is important. This is where the problems arose originally, because we weren't aware of them going along and cutting back as they were. Are we going to be assured and conditions placed that we will be informed of dates and times and when they're on site
Thank
for
you.
cutting or whatever?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we will certainly reach out to the Hills Group and ask them to give us prior warning of when they want to start felling, so we can let the residents know. And I'm more than happy to attend prior to the felling of that to look at the pre-agreed tree felling and removal to document and record it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Virgo.
Thanks, Chair. Can we welcome the tree officer, because we've never really said hello.
Welcome to our new tree officer.
It's
It's very
welcome.
good to see you. Yeah.
I'm a little confused about this, to be honest with you. So forgive me. What I'm surprised at is that we didn't have the application from the Hill Group to plant the trees to release this condition. Because once we've released the condition, we have no pressure at all. I mean, that's gone, isn't it? I mean, if we don't have an application, there's nothing we can do about this. That is correct, isn't it?
So through you, Chair, are you referring to tree planting on the hillside or on the Taylor Wimpey site?
Well,
Just for
on both sides, but the
clarification.
one I was really interested in, the loss of trees, I suppose, and the ones the residents are particularly concerned with. I know there are others, which is why this thing is so confusing, but...
Of course. Yes, I mean, the 9 trees, I believe it was, that were lost on the Evergreen site, yes, there is an expectation that they will be replaced, but as it's not on this application site, we can't deal with them on this application, and the Hill Group can't make an application for that replanting within Taylor Wimpey site. But Taylor Wimpey obviously have their own interest that they are expecting their trees to be replaced on their site, and if any other trees they believe may be lost because of loss of Hill Group or because they're already in a poor condition, we would expect Taylor Wimpey to prepare that application, submit it and put it before members. This application is obviously for the tree fencing to protect those trees rather than looking at the tree planting on a different site.
Thank you.
If I may just go on with this debate, although it's a question, of course. But you see, I don't quite get this, because here we have a loss of trees and the residents are really angry about it. I get that point. So we're now discharging this condition, which means as far as we're concerned, they can just get on with it. But we've got no leeway, this council, if for instance, there's no application that comes for new trees and the old ones aren't, the ones that are dead aren't replaced, we have nowhere to go. And while we still have this, condition that still hasn't been released, I would have expected the two to come together, and then we can say, great, we've achieved it. But now we're giving everything, and we haven't got anything back. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Thank you.
To you, Chair. It's difficult. This application is to protect trees, and obviously the loss of trees within the Taylor Wimpey site are obviously a change to the agreed landscaping in Evergreens. So we do have scoped that in the sense of there is a breach of the landscaping condition in the Evergreen site. So we can require the owner of that site to submit a revised condition. And again, if any other trees are lost within Evergreen site, and at the moment there are no proposals because Hill can't propose that, we would again expect a revised landscaping scheme. The buffers on Evergreens are required as part of their landscaping. If any of those trees are lost, we can require replanting of trees to discharge that condition again. But that application does have to be made by the owner of the site, which is Taylor Wimpey. So we do have those powers.
Can I just ask a further question on that? If we do have those powers, Margaret, are you saying that if they don't develop and we aren't satisfactory after we discharge this condition, we have a legal right to take action against Taylor Wimpey.
We always have the option to look at a breach of condition, yes, and we're aware of the loss of the 9 trees in Taylor Wimpey. Granted, it wasn't Taylor Wimpey that removed those trees, but we have discussed it with them, and they've discussed the legal position with the Hill Group, because obviously they have removed their property. If they survey their site and feel that any more trees will be lost, they could put that in the same landscaping package. So we do have the right to do that, as we do for any breach of condition on any site. And we're aware of this one, of course. We're not always aware of breaches of conditions.
Can I make a plea that this comes back to the committee?
I'm sure it will, because we need that done, obviously. Can I take Councillor Mary Temperton first, please?
Yeah, I'm trying not to choke, but Bracknell, can I just ask why this is different for these Scots pines this time round, for the whole of the rest of, well, Birch Hill, Hamworth, Great Hollands, Forest Park, Crownwood, Harmer's Water have all been built from Swimley Forest, Buckley's Park now. And throughout all of those estates, there's long corridors of pine trees. And in my garden, there's 7 of them. And so they were left just as a long corridor, and then maybe others, and all over the place, people with fun. So why is this going to be different with the wind and the turbine, the destruction to the roots and everything, than all of those other Bracknell estates that have been built, please? Is it likely to be different because the soil's different, or is it similar?
Tree officer.
This potentially could be quite a long answer. So it all depends on the growing conditions of the tree, where they're growing at the time, their mature height, their exposure to wind, site activities, and the actual overall physiological and structural condition of those trees. Now, you can't apply one scenario to another. So where some trees are suddenly exposed to wind, they are of a sufficient age, i.e. their size and stature, which means relatively they are sheltered by adjacent buildings and trees. Where you have forest type situations, then that's slightly different because you're removing companion shelter. When you're suddenly doing that, it takes time for the trees to react, to lay down supporting tissues in their stems and their roots to support themselves. So where there is an increased likelihood of tree failure, whether it's suddenly exposed to wind, that doesn't necessarily mean that they will fail within the wind, because there's many examples of in forestry operations where maiden trees are left within stands which are being cleared and they remain wind firm. It also very specifically relies on climate. So where you have wet, windy conditions, we all remember storms of '87. That is there's too many factors at the moment, unless each individual tree has been surveyed. So you carry out full visual tree assessment and look at it, and those ones which do have significant biomechanical defects, which are probably there's an elevated risk of failure, those are the trees that you'd want to minimise risk by either reducing parts of them or removing those and looking at mitigation planting. But at the moment, there is no broad brush approach that we can take to tree removal retention or prediction of tree failure. There's increased likelihoods by removal of tree shelter, by companion shelter, but it's an unknown at the moment. So I can't give a full answer to that question, unfortunately, at the moment. It's reliant on the experts doing their surveys, and then we can take an opinion and view on that point at that time.
Can I just ask, can you, by looking at the trees that are being left, know, or do you have to do something more sophisticated to see if they're going to be firm in the long run?
Around this time, so what we're looking for is trees with obvious structural defects or trees without any sort of stem taper. So where you have a thin, slender trunk, some of them can be reasonably obvious, the ones which aren't likely to be able to be retained in the long term. Trees with taper, either thickening at the base of the tree from their root collar coming up, necessarily means they generally will tend to be wind firm, but then we're also looking for fungal pathogens, which can be latent or present within the trees themselves. So they may not activate until physiologically stressed, and that stress could be through climate, wind change, drought, change in their environment. You just don't know. So where we look for the obvious signs, there's no reliable predictor of tree failure, because even healthy trees will shed limbs and fail within inclement weather.
Thank you. Councillor Collins, sorry.
Can I just ask a follow-on on that? So what I'm concerned about is trees being removed in case they're unstable, but what you're saying is actually Taylor Wimpey are going to survey those trees and they will only be removed if there's an indication that they need to be. We're not just taking them out in case.
I think they would be. I think we'd all agree there needs to be a strong justification for tree removal, and certainly that would be. We would expect a tree report fully justifying any sort of forms of tree removal. I think the intention within that belt, although it doesn't form part of this application, is certainly to. And I think we need to just focus on, although the two share a common boundary, this is about the tree protection of the trees within W8, within the Taylor Wimpey site, by putting in the necessary measures, ground protection measures and tree exclusion zones, essentially to prevent them from mechanical damage or damage to their soil environments as well, which is equally and fundamentally important to tree retention. But then we would expect, as part of a future application on the neighbouring site, for those trees to be assessed. You would want to assess those trees anyway in accordance with your duty of care. So your tree inspections will pick up trees with structural defects, some which can be retained, some can't be retained, irrespective of whether trees within the adjacent site are being removed. So there is a health and safety aspect there which needs to be taken. But then any tree loss within that boundary, there's ample space there for mitigation planting, because it's fundamentally important that that boundary is retained or strengthened with additional tree planting and maintained into the long term to ensure there is that visual separation and screening between the two sites. So it's a difficult site. It's one where the quantum of development has already been decided, and we are tackling each situation as we go along. As I understand, although I haven't been out on site to measure, there is a net gain with the regularisation or the agreement and boundary to W8, so there is an additional space, soft ground, which is being preserved, which could be used potentially for replanting, but again, that doesn't form part of this application. It's a future application for the adjacent site.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mackenzie Boyle.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Frankly, my question was involving enforcement, which was about 10 minutes ago, and I think probably everybody's forgotten what the officer said. But can we ensure that anything that goes on this site is enforced, is scrutinised properly?
Yeah. Through you, Chair, yes. And in fact, as it's noted in the AMS, there is discussion of appointment of an arboricultural clerk of works by the Hill Group, and also our tree officers are also available to liaise.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's good. Councillor Virgo.
Can I just follow Councillor Collins's point? Would it be true to say that it's just like a doctor, isn't it? One doctor says one thing, another doctor says another thing. So you get one tree surgeon who says it's got to come down. The other one says, listen, you can just trim it, it'll be fine. I've got some experience of that in my own garden, because that's exactly what someone said, got someone else in, and they said, no, it's fine. And it's now growing. So you see, the problem with this is that the residents have lost confidence in the company. And they therefore think they're going to just take all these trees out and it's going to be worse and worse and worse. Is there any way the council can be absolutely sure that you're there to see some of this and testify to whatever they want to bring in as a tree officer and say it's got to come out for these reasons? I know they do it on paperwork, but to be honest, I'm not sure I believe the paperwork at this stage. I can see their point that they're very concerned that this gives them almost carte blanche to do what they like. And we don't seem to have enough control over that. We're sort of looking and hoping, really. I mean, what's your feeling?
Thank you for the question. Essentially, there will be overview and scrutiny of any plans by myself in terms of landscaping and going through the landscaping officer to make sure that what is... sorry, apologies. So there will be overview and scrutiny of those plans, and we will ensure that the tree planting is appropriate to the site.
On site, that's the point I'm trying to make. Actually on site, having a look at it, rather than looking at paperwork. I'm just a little bit nervous of paperwork from this company at the moment, to be honest.
Unfortunately, I can't comment on that element, but we can certainly look at arranging dates and times to be out when the company
If you could, that would be great.
plants, if it gives people some sort of confidence that the system is being, that we are looking at it appropriately. First of all, it has to come through, as you say, on paper form, so it needs to pass a fairly rigorous method statements, and there's an opportunity there to reinforce those to make sure that the species planted are appropriate to the site, they increase biodiversity. There is a willingness on both parties to do that. Yeah, as I say, it would come through as part of either discharge condition.
The only thing I would just add is that we don't want the paperwork to come, they've already done it. That's the problem.
Yeah, we've seen that. I think we've done that one. So, Councillor Penfold?
Can councillors be informed when this meeting and survey is taking place? So to be reassured that it's not just paper.
Through you, Chair. I think it wouldn't be a question of us dictating when the survey takes place. As you appreciate, that's not part of this application, which is for tree protection. So what we're talking about is on in relation to the Taylor Wimpey site and in terms of a future revision to the landscaping scheme, which will need to be supported by a tree survey. We would expect them to, Taylor Wimpey, possibly in conjunction with the Hill Group, to undertake that tree survey and submit that information to us. What we can be assured is that once we've got that information, that it would be something that our tree officer would have the opportunity to go to arrange a site visit and go down and verify the findings of the tree survey report on site, and that would inform our decision making in terms of looking at any alternative landscaping scheme, but that doesn't form part of this application, and I don't think it would be appropriate for us to find out exactly when the survey was going on, because it's not that point that we're interested in. It's assessing the survey, and that would be within our tree officer's time frame.
Right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Further questions? Oh, Councillor Collins.
Yeah, going back to the boundaries and the resolution of the boundary dispute, could you explain the impact of the changes in the boundary, particularly along the east and southern sides on the boundary with the evergreens?
I can, through you, Chair. I believe the impact is that the site has moved eastwards. So I'm just showing on the construction mitigation plan that the black line of the construction fencing pretty much aligns with the new boundary in the sense of Taylor Wimpey have gained approximately 2 metres all along that boundary, which of course means that the development of Hill, I'm sure, would need a revised layout now to take that into account, and it gives the an extra 2 metres approximately along that boundary, which obviously is available for additional tree planting, not for development. There are also changes on the southern boundary, where I believe actually the boundary may have moved up north a little, rather there. So it's as if the site's pivoted on its axis a little, but that is a position that I believe both landowners are now happy with and do accept that those are the acceptable boundaries. And I know the tree officers alluded to the fact that it does give perhaps greater protection for the trees along that eastern boundary of evergreens, and hopefully more space, if any replanting is needed, to give that there. So that's the position, as I understand, is the agreed position.
Can I ask, because it looks like there's going to be some very, very small gardens in the Hill Group. Are they going to offer a new or a revised layout to compensate? Are those too small? What?
Obviously, this is early days because this has been settled relatively recently. If, as a result of the change in ownership, the Hill Group can't build out the layout as approved, then they would be required to submit an amended application in some form. So yes, if the boundary, as I believe it does impact on garden boundaries and also some of the apartments further south, and they can't implement that consent, we would require a new application to look at a revised layout. But that's early days and we don't have that amendment in, haven't seen anything of it. We're just aware that the ownership has changed and there may be knock-on impacts.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? Okay. So I need to make the recommendation on page, it's the other one. Page 41, 42 of the agenda backpack. And yes, amendment to the approved plan, page 2 of the supplementary report. I'm forgetting a supplementary report, that's no good. So it's recommended that the details submitted pursuant to condition 10 of the planning permission, etc., be approved and amended by the supplementary report. I haven't got that to hand, sorry.
Yes, it was on page 2. Page 2. It was just the approved plans.
Okay.
And the additional informative that the officer recommended.
Could you remind us of the additional informative, please?
I can, Chair. The informative is, which I will of course pass over for the minutes, is the applicant is advised that the tree protection measures are required to remain in place for the duration of the construction works as set out in the AMS, and that if any rearrangement is required to facilitate the implementation of the planning permission, a revised AMS will be required.
Thank you, that's very helpful. Members, what do you feel about this now, having heard all that we have from our officers and the speakers? Oh, yeah, I haven't got a seconder. May I have a seconder for the recommendation?
I'm happy to second.
Thank you. Okay. Comments, please. Nobody at all?
It's a mess. I think it's a comment now. We're looking at something that's gone wrong. We're looking at a change of boundaries. We're not sure that those trees, we hear both sides of the story here, and we've been asked to just approve it. I'm slightly nervous of this, to be honest with you, because of what's happened before. And I just haven't got total confidence in the fact that we can protect these residents. I just haven't. And I know, having been there, that, those trees are, they're there as a boundary between these two developments. And then suddenly, we're talking about, oh, well, the tree has to come down because it's not very good. And, and some people say it's got disease and some people say it hasn't. Oh, we'll take it down, it's gone. And I feel very awkward about this, to be honest, and nervous of doing this. I understand where the council is. I would have liked to have seen, Madam Chairman, two things here. One is a release of this so they can get on with the job, but also a replanting thing so we know exactly where we are here. we're sort of in the dark. We hope this is going to come forward. We hope we can do something for them. We hope we can take enforcement action. It's all a lot of this. Sorry if I'm going on here, but I feel nervous of this. I'm not convinced by it, actually.
Thank you. Councillor Temperton.
I think that we have to go and we have to say we're going to make sure this works. Because I think the trees, and I go on again about all over Bracknell, there's been similar developments and there's been similar fears. And I think if we get the the tree specialists working with them, and this was a good condition that we do actually get them out there looking at it and making sure that they agree with it, then I think the boundaries will be preserved, and with mature planting if necessary, but coming in with the proper maintenance of all that, I think this will work. But because there was a mistake made, but lessons can be learnt from that mistake, and I think we're here today, and we hope everybody has learnt from that mistake, and therefore we're in a good position not to make a similar mistake again. And there's a lot in this plan to put in precautions for that. So I think I'm in favour of this recommendation, because I think pine trees are pine trees, and they're not, and we need other trees being put in, which will be good, but also those, not necessarily all those pine trees will go in a domino effect and just go over, because that has not been the history of Bracknell.
Thank you. Councillor Mackenzie Boyle.
Thank you. Pine trees, pine trees. Pine trees do contribute to our carbon reduction. Whatever that tree is what we need to protect. And frankly, I'm going towards what Councillor Virgo said, that we need to ensure that the tree officer actually does what he's saying he's going to do. Can I just go back to what the Hill Group, they heard on the 23rd of April. And yes, they did. And can I say why they heard on the 23rd of April? Because we have in Crowthorne a marvellous village action group. And I got this crise de cardiac from the secretary, Carol Doran, who said, why are those trees coming down in nesting? And nobody knew. Nobody knew. So, as I've always said, every village, every parish needs a CVAG. So thank you for those to ensure that we're trying to keep the trees that we do have, pines or otherwise. So thank you very much, and I have to say I support Councillor Virgo's.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's very clear that this is one of those applications where the discussion is about one thing, but really it's about something else, and there's so much surrounding this. This has always been a contentious site. It was a contentious site when it was included in the local plan. It was a contentious site over a number of rounds, over a number of different versions of this committee over the years when it came here. I feel incredibly sympathetic to residents, and I don't think there is anybody on this committee who is not furious about the incident with the loss of the trees on the adjacent site. It beggars belief. I don't quite know how you make a mistake of that magnitude, but I do think we do need to focus on what the application before us actually is about, and what our role in determining that is. And all of these ancillary issues, this isn't to dismiss any of them, and I think there have been some really important points raised around enforcement, about, I think particularly with the concerns around this site, ensuring that our tree officers are maintaining a very high level of oversight on that. There's clearly precedent on this site with this developer that suggests that we need to keep a much closer eye than we ideally otherwise would. But I do feel, with regards to the actual content of this application, I can't see any specific reason why what's proposed in this application doesn't comply with policy and isn't suitable. So I will have to support it, but not without sympathy and a lot of concern for the surrounding issues, which I know are what residents are really very upset about.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Please. Councillor Collins.
Yes, a difficult one for all the reasons that everybody's already gone through. I'm pleased that the boundary dispute is resolved, and I think it's good to hear that we've got an increased boundary of containing trees on the eastern edge of the site. So we will have the potential for more trees being retained there. Pine trees, not the best trees, and may have a limited lifespan, I guess, compared to other trees. So I'm pleased to hear that we're going to have some native deciduous trees planted in its place. We've already approved in principle the removal of the trees in the original planning application. So I think on balance I will be supporting this application because I believe that through much work and numerous iterations of the arboricultural method statement that we have come to the best solution to the issue, and the trees will be protected in a way that they haven't been in the past.
Thank you. No? So if I can have my moment. We've been through a lot on these applications because of the first error. And actually, we've had it explained by the tree officer that actually it's not very easy to predict which of the pine trees is going to survive well. All may be okay, but likely not. It is a fact of life that if some are exposed, they may be blown down, but they may be fine. But we have a contingency because as we see what happens, how things pan out with the cutting of the trees, removal of the trees that are up to the new boundary, which leaves us a couple of metres, no, is it a couple of metres, extra on the east, which is very nice. The change of boundary protecting more trees, because it's so unpredictable, the durability and the strength of the trees being exposed, we do have the opportunity to say, okay, we need to, we've got to remove these, but we will be planting new, more durable trees, and they will be looked after as far as we know, and we need to check that, and it's a long process, but we've all got to keep an eye on this. And the residents, I have to congratulate you for being persistent with these things, because if you weren't looking out for this, I don't know where we'd be. And it's been a horrible time. But I'm glad to say this sounds as if we have bases covered, and thank you to our officers for dealing with each issue that arose. I think we have done what we can, but of course it doesn't end here, and we've got to keep on checking, and we know that we will get checked. The situation will get checked. So I'd be supporting on that basis. May I now take a vote, please? All those in favour of the recommendation? Do you want to indicate?
I
Yeah.
believe that's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very
So
much.
the motion is carried.
Thank you. If that's the end of your item, if you want to leave, please do. Yeah, I guess you might want to do evergreens. Is that your cue to go? Thank you for attending.
Yes. Could you just say Councillor Smith's left the chair? Just say it's on the recording.
Yeah. Thank you for attending. Okay, please note that Councillor Smith has left because he has an interest in this item, because he's worked for them. Are you ready to restart, councillors? Excuse me? Thank you. Shall we take item 5 now, please? May we have the officer's report? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This is a Section 73 application which seeks to grant planning permission for internal changes already made to 14 houses to create 1 additional bedroom within each house. These changes were made during construction of the properties, and the properties have therefore not been constructed in accordance with approved plans. The properties have since been sold and are no longer under the control of the developer. The changes to provide the additional bedrooms are internal only, and no external changes to the properties have been made. Members will recall that this application was considered by the Planning Committee at its meeting in September, where it was resolved that the application be deferred from consideration by the Planning Committee in order to allow officers and members to arrange a meeting with representatives of the 14 affected households and Taylor Wimpey within 1 week of the meeting in order to work to agree an alternative layout which seeks to address the shortfall in parking that results from the unlawful construction of the dwellings, with the firm intention that an alternative scheme is ready to be presented to the October meeting. This meeting took place in September. An amended site layout has now been submitted, which indicates 14 parking spaces will be provided to be allocated to the 14 plots. And as members can see on the screen, 7 spaces will be provided north of the site along the access road, and the other 7 are provided in the south of the site. The highways officer has no objection to the revised layout. The final allocation of those spaces to be properties will be done through discussions between Taylor Wimpey and the affected residents, but they will be allocated to each property. Additional contributions will also be secured towards primary education, SPA and SAM mitigation measures to be paid before planning permission is issued. In conclusion, members, as this was discussed last month, of course, buyers have bought properties without being aware of the planning position, and to require the removal of those bedrooms in the properties was seen as being punitive to owners who were not a party to the breach of planning control. And any enforcement action to remedy the breach to require the properties to revert to the approved layout could only be taken against the owners of the properties, and that is not considered to be appropriate. Accordingly, officers have sought to work with the developer to remedy that breach of planning. In the event that planning permission is granted for the current proposal, the breach of planning control will have been remedied, and certainty will be provided to existing owners. Members will note that a supplementary report has been prepared, updating 2 of the conditions, the approved plans and a condition requiring the parking spaces to be marked out and provided, and details of an additional letter received. The recommendation before members is as set out in the main report and the supplementary report, and is that following the receipt of contributions towards primary education and SPA and SAM mitigation, the Assistant Director Planning be authorised to approve the application, subject to the conditions as set out in the main report and supplementary report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Questions for the officer, please. Councillor Hayes.
Will this now assist the purchasers to be able to regulate their own properties now with their mortgages and all the rest of it, secured in a legal binding thing with the developer?
Thank you, Chair, through you. Subject, as soon as the contributions are received, and I believe the invoice has been issued, when planning permission has been issued, then those properties are lawful. So the concerns that I think we've all shared and been upset about on behalf of the residents should go away, and the properties will be authorised, yes.
Thank you. Councillor Mackenzie Boyle.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. So you've heard from the residents, and they are reasonably comfortable now with the site and with their way of working.
Thank you, Chair. We did hold the meeting with Councillor Temperton, and the amended plan was a result of discussions with residents. And since then, we've obviously notified residents again. We've received one letter which referred to a specific choice of parking space, but no letters expressing concerns with the solution.
Thank you. Councillor Virgo, please.
Could I have more information, please? I understand there is a covenant on the land, and I don't think we understand that. Certainly I don't. So my question is twofold. Could you explain the covenant? That's the first thing. And the second thing is, if the covenant can't be changed, what's the fallback position, please?
Thank you, Chair, through you. The covenant affects land here in the northwest of the site, I believe. The covenant is held by adjoining site owners, so it doesn't affect the provision of the parking spaces shown on this layout. So the covenant, there's no reason I'm aware of to lift that covenant. This was discussed at the meeting with residents and with Taylor Wimpey, and I believe they've contacted their solicitor since, but it doesn't affect the proposed parking spaces.
Thank you.
Could I just have clarification? So in that case, the 14 spaces, extra spaces, can be. There's no reason why they can't be supplied by the developer.
No, these spaces were offered by the developer.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Councillor Temperton.
Yeah, I was going to mention the covenant as well, because it was hoped that the covenant could be lifted. This meeting was on Monday, which was 7 working days since the meeting before with us. And the covenant, they asked, the residents really wanted that covenant lifted.
Excuse me, is this a question, or can you keep it till the comments?
Oh, no, I'll keep it to the other one then.
Thank
Okay,
you.
right.
Any more questions, please? No? Okay. Yeah, carry on with your comment,
Okay.
please.
The covenant was in there, and it was access, and it was asked if that would be, as far as the residents are concerned, they would rather have had car parking places there than on the access road coming in, if possible. But because they asked if the covenant could be lifted, and that could be used, but it couldn't be lifted within time, and so it's not part of this. But the 14 places were acceptable to the residents at the time, including the 7 down the access road, as long as they were allocated, which is all in this plan.
Sorry, I've done it in the wrong order. I should have
Yeah, I've got to say that again.
moved the recommendation on page 28. Is there something else on the supplementary? And amended conditions on page 1 of the supplementary report. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Breslin, thank you. I'm sorry, patience. I think we took in Councillor Temperton's comments. Do others have more comment, please? Councillor Hayes.
Only that I'm hoping, even if our building inspectors aren't requested to go there, we do go to sites such as this, because it's appalling to think that these buildings were allowed to get developed and sold in such a way. And I hope it doesn't happen again.
Councillor Mackenzie Boyle.
May I, Councillor Hayes? It has happened again. Yes. It's happened in Moorfield. It's happened Deanfield House. Here we go again. So let's get our enforcement chaps working on this. I know we've only got 3, but we need to really bolster up our enforcement team.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Collins.
I just want to add that I hope the allocation of spaces, which I understand is a matter for the applicant and the residents to resolve, goes well, because clearly there are some spaces which are further away from the properties than others. So I hope that can be resolved to everybody's satisfaction.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? I must say that unless you went into these houses, you wouldn't have known that there was anything different. There was nothing different from the outside. Well, yeah. Councillor Temperton.
Sadly, I think that's what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to look on My Move or whatever it is, Right Move, look at what's coming up for sale on new developments, and then compare them to what we have passed in this planning committee and see if they agree and highlight, because we can't expect everybody, our officers and everything, to keep doing it. So I think we're going to have to do it, to look at look at what's up for sale, look at what was there on the original plan, and to actually find this out, because I don't think this is the only incident. It was 37 houses in this case, which was not an accident.
No.
But we also need to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, yes. And no, I think...
Yeah,
no,
I understand what you're saying, but that rather puts the onus on the councils, on the committee, Councillor Templeton.
I think there is a buyer beware thing here.
Just awareness. It was just an awareness, I think.
Working together. It isn't a working together, but shouldn't be working at a triumvirate, therefore. It should be the officers, the developers and the committee.
And the buyers to check what they're buying.
Yeah, well, that's
Sorry.
where...
Okay, now I think everybody has spoken. May we take a vote, please? All those in favour of the recommendation to approve?
Oh, no, I'm abstaining.
Oh, you're abstaining, thank you.
1, 2, 3. I believe that's 9 in favour, Chair, and 1 abstention.
Thank you very much. I haven't been checking Councillor Zahuruddin, whether he wanted to speak, but he hasn't. I think he's just listening. Okay. Thank you.
Nothing from me, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, if you would like to leave, please do so now. And yes, we'll get Councillor Smith back in the room. Thank you for attending. Okay, we do have Councillor Smith back in the room, thank you. So if I can have your attention, please. We'll move on to the last item, which is the land at Osborne Lane, page 43. It's Kevin.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. My name's Kevin Lloyd-Jones. I am the presenting officer for this case, which is 24785 FUL. Now, this is a retrospective planning application for the change of use of a building within the countryside from equestrian to a mixed use for equestrian, storage and an ancillary workshop. Also included in the application is the retention of solar panels to the roof of the building and the retention of an external generator. Now, the application's been brought to Planning Committee this evening as a result of receiving 12 objections from neighbours and also from the Parish Council. There has been no objection from the Highway Authority nor from Environmental Health. Councillors Brown, Collins, Presland and Temperton attended the site visit on Saturday the 4th of October. So the application site is a parcel of land of approximately 4 acres to the east of Osborne Lane, which is just in the north of Warfield. As I say, within a countryside setting and enclosed by a mix of hedgerows and trees, and the cut runs along the eastern boundary. Now, in the photograph on the screen, you can just see the roof of the building in question just behind the tree, the hedge, sorry. Now, the wider site comprises stables, which is the U-shaped building in the centre of the site, which were granted permission in 2018. The barn in question, which is granted permission in 2019. A manege, which is granted permission in 2020. Now, the remainder of the land is being used as paddock for the private equestrian use of the owners. It lies within flood zone 3, which is a high probability of flooding, but in accordance with advice from the EA, appropriate uses in flood zone 3 can include both less vulnerable uses and water compatible uses, and the site use falls within those categories. Now, looking at the 3 elements of the application separately, firstly, I'll take into account the change of use. Now, the 2019 description of development for the approved building, the barn, was erection of a barn. The decision notice for this approval did not impose any conditions on its specific use. Nothing stated equestrian use only. The barn, as can be seen in the photographs, currently houses various machinery used for essential tasks on the site. Tractors, a mini digger, horse boxes, all of which require regular maintenance. The barn continues to be used for storing hay, mainly over the winter period. Now, a classic Land Rover and tractor owned by the applicants are stored within the barn. These vehicles have logbooks registered in the applicant's name. Although there is an element of private repair and restoration of the applicant's vehicles, there is no element of commercial operation. Now, looking at the consultees, the Highway Authority, the Council's Highway Authority, has no objection to proposed change of use to agricultural to a mixed use. The existing parking and access arrangements will not be affected. Looking at from the environmental health side of things, the Environmental Health Officer has visited the site on several occasions and was reassured that the building was being used for personal hobby use by the site owners and is not, and it will not be, in commercial use. The use is not going to be intensive and disturbance is unlikely. The impact on the countryside of the proposed non-commercial use for equestrian, storage, ancillary workshop is deemed equal to any other more typical rural neighbouring uses, such as equestrian or agricultural, where some occasional noise and smells will be present. This is not to a commercial intensity. So looking at the solar panels, 10 PV cell panels have been installed. These are on the eastern roof slope, which is away from the lane. Generated power from these panels is stored in a battery. And it must be noted here that the barn is completely off-grid, so solar is the main power source. Now, these panels can actually be installed under GPDO, under permitted development, through a prior approval application under Schedule 2, Part 14, Class J. Now, looking at the specific to the generator, as I mentioned, the primary source, energy source for the building will be from solar, which will charge a battery for most of the site's energy needs. The generator shown in the image here is to provide backup power for the security system for the barn. It's used in times when solar level intensity has been insufficient to charge the battery. When the charge drops below a trigger level, the generator will fire up. And it takes approximately 40 minutes to charge the battery to full again. Now, this generator is located, again, on the eastern side of the barn, so it's not visible in public viewpoint. In terms of when the generator can kick in, it's been set to restricted timings, so it cannot operate between 6 p.m. and 9 a.m. Monday to Saturday, and can only operate on Sundays and public holidays between 10 and 4, and that's secured by condition. With regards to generator noise, a noise assessment was submitted with the application. Now, sound levels were taken at the southernmost corner of the site, closest to the nearby residential properties. When the generator was off, the background noise level was 43.2 decibels. When it was on, it was 44 decibels. So the change is under 1 decibel, which is imperceptible. And that noise assessment was verified by the Environmental Health Officer, showing the sound emitted by the generator would be marginally over that of the general background noise. So I just want to run through the representations that we received, the objections. These mainly summarised under noise pollution, air pollution, breach of planning, safety, and an industrial use being incompatible with the rural nature. So taking those in turn, I've discussed the noise. It showed it was less than 1 decibel above the background noise level. Any power tool use associated with the workshop is commensurate with low-scale, non-commercial use, and that will be conditioned to be indoor only. Air pollution from the generator and work on the cars, the machinery. To quote the Environmental Health Officer, they believe the possible air pollution from this use is as likely as if there were any other more typical rural neighbouring uses, such as equestrian use or agricultural use. Looking at the breach of planning and being contravention to previous planning approval, well, a planning contravention notice has been served, and this application seeks to regularise the use. Safety. The generator is a new model, it's well maintained, housed in a designated enclosure away from the barn. No safety concerns are anticipated. And then looking at the industrial use and rural incompatibility, I've covered this, but running a car restoration business is not what's happening here. The use is non-commercial, restricted to the owners and their families, their immediate families only. So say the intensity of the use is no more than one would expect from agricultural or equestrian use in the countryside. So I wanted to touch on conditions, which are outlined in section 11 of the report, also in the supplementary planning document. Condition 2, as I mentioned, restricts the times the generator can kick in, but that's only when it's actually needed to recharge the battery. And it could only be for a maximum of 40 minutes to get the battery to full, but it can only be daylight hours, Monday to Saturday and Sundays, bank holidays. Restricting the bar for non-commercial use. Use of power tools shall only be within the barn itself, inside, nothing externally. And condition 5 is just relating to the generator and the sound insulation enclosure for the generator. That needs to be completed within 2 months of the date of this permission. And if this could be minuted, this is an addition to the supplementary planning, but it shall be maintained as such thereafter. So just in conclusion, it's considered that the use of the barn as an ancillary, non-commercial workshop and storage, the external generator would be appropriate for this countryside setting. It wouldn't have a detrimental effect on the amenity of neighbours, nor on the character and appearance of the area, or on highway safety. No material considerations exist that indicate there should be a departure from the development plan, and therefore application is recommended for conditional approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions for the officer? Councillor Mackenzie Boyle, please.
Thank you. I have to say, before we go in, what a brilliant report. Thank you. Fantastic. The use of power tools. This is the recommendation 4. should be limited to inside the barn only. What about trimmers, lawnmowers, and that sort of thing? They're going to have to maintain the exterior. So how does that work?
Through you, Chair. That is use of power tools in relation to the machinery restoration, machinery work that takes place within the barn, within the building.
Thank you. Councillor Smith, please.
Hey, Chair. Let's just start with regards to the use. You described it as non-commercial. Can I just confirm, so that under this permission, any commercial use of that unit would not be permitted? It solely is for non-commercial use.
Through you, Chair. That is exactly correct. Use by the applicants and their immediate families only.
Thank you. A second, yeah?
I have a number of questions regards to the noise
Carry
report. My first question was just, we published our new noise planning note earlier this year, which was an excellent piece of work by officers. That note states that, and I read it here, as noise is a specialist area of work where developers are required to submit a noise assessment, it must be carried out by a competent person. To be considered competent, consultants should hold qualifications on the assessment of environmental noise and or building acoustics and be members of the Institute of Acoustics. Acoustic consultants should be members of the Association of Noise Consultants. When I reviewed the acoustic report which was submitted by the applicant, it appears to be a report by the planning consultant. I can't see anything in that which identifies who was responsible for taking these measurements or what their qualifications or competency were. I was just wondering, has that been verified in any way?
Thank you. Yeah.
Through you, Chair, I'd like to defer to the Environmental Health Officer who reviewed all reports and carried out her own assessment, I believe is online. Yeah.
Yes, please.
Hello, Jodie Wilson from Environmental Health. Yes, the noise assessment is not completed by an acoustic consultant with the usual competencies that we'd expect. This was an unusual application, and if this had been a commercial application, then absolutely we would have been requesting the full acoustic noise impact assessment in line with the noise policy. With this being effectively such a kind of low level situation with 40 minutes of a generator for backup being used in the darker months of the year, we accepted that they could provide us with enough information for us to understand the noise impact of the generator, what noise levels it was operating at, and so this is what they've submitted. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you. I thank the officer for her response there. I think that it feels not unreasonable in the situation. I am just a little concerned that in terms of some of the details that are in the report, it's quite lacking. So, for example, it provides various decibel figures, but there is absolutely no information there as to what parameters they represent. Is that an LAQ? Is it an LMAX? Is it an L90? Over what period have these been taken? So I'm just a little worried that I'm not sure how much weight we can put on a report like that hasn't been written by a specialist and doesn't seem to address some of the things I would hope would be addressed.
Can I add to that?
Yes, please.
What I would say is that myself and Kevin, alongside the applicant, ran the generator. We went ourselves to the nearest residential property and did a subjective assessment with and without the generator, and the noise from the generator was inaudible at the boundary. Leaf rustle and other environmental sounds were the dominant noise source.
Can I also add that at the site visit we left Councillor Temperton next to the generator to check it was going. And we walked down to the end of the site, and it was almost imperceptible when the generator was running. Was it Councillor Pressland had heard it start up?
I heard it start.
But we,
Yes, I heard it start, but it was very, very, very quiet.
yeah, thank you.
And Councillor Temperton, who stood right beside it, heard it as a tractor noise.
Like a
And this is
tractor noise.
before it's got in any insulation around it. There's no insulation in that hut at all at the moment, and that will be around there. So, but I was standing there, and it was just a tractor noise.
Thank you for that. Yes, Councillor Smith.
If I can just one more then, more of a question around the conditions. I don't know, maybe if you want to bring the slide up, Kevin, with the conditions you had. That was very useful. I liked the addition on condition 5. I was just going to ask as well around that concerns the enclosure, but obviously the efficacy of that enclosure is based upon the noise of the generator that's in there. If they were at a later point to replace that generator, do we, within the conditions at the minute, have any kind of guarantee that that will be no noisier? If we don't, is it possible to maybe amend that condition to write something in just to ensure, that not just the enclosure but the generator itself will be maintained in line with the information provided in the report or something like that, perhaps as a small amendment to that condition?
Can this be done, please?
Through you, Chair. I think we have to determine the planning application on the basis that we have in front of us. My view would be that the condition as it's proposed is sufficient. If there were to be a change in the generator in the future such that it caused an issue of noise, then that would be something that could be reported to the Environmental Health Department. I don't think that we could actually require that they retain exactly the same generator or come back to us if they wanted to change it. Thank you.
Councillor Smith, yeah.
Okay, I wasn't necessarily suggesting it has to be exactly the same generator. That would obviously be unreasonable. I think it's more just making sure that any future generator is no noisier. If we are approving the application tonight on the understanding that this generator is having no noise impact, it feels reasonable to require within the condition that is maintained. I'm always concerned that if you rely on environmental health protections against noise nuisance, that the bar is a lot lower than it is at the planning stage in terms of protecting. And I know quite a few of the objections have raised concerns around the noise. So I'm just wondering, is there any wording? They've submitted a report, so in the same way that we would expect an application, we can write conditions that require them to deliver it in line with these documents. Is there no way we can require them to, ensure that the generator is maintained in line with the noise levels that they have themselves submitted in that report?
Through you, Chair, I think my advice would remain that the condition as it's worded is the best that we can do. I think it follows the principle that we deal with all applications is that we ask them to submit information on the basis of the use that is being proposed, and that's what we've got in front of us, and we've taken reasonable measures to ensure that it will be operating in line with the proposal. I think particularly in this instance, because we think there's a very low level risk of there being any kind of noise nuisance. My advice to the committee would be that the application would, the condition should stand, and I can't think of a way that we could amend it that in a reasonable manner that would cover the point that Councillor Smith raises.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hayes.
Just for clarification, page 49, 6.3.5, industrial use, running a car restoration business, officers comment. The use is non-commercial and restricted to the owners and their immediate family only. This can be conditioned. Are we happy with conditions that has been set? I do have concerns of past places that I have seen that they've said there's been family and the rest of it, and it becomes a business. But are we really happy that conditions
thank
have been
you.
placed
Yeah.
legally for that purpose.
Officer, thank you.
Well, through you, Chair. Condition 3 shall be the non-commercial use. So it specifically says that for the owners of the site and their immediate family. So that I am.
Yes, the officer created it, so I should think that's about right.
Must do better.
Anyone else, please, for questions? No? Okay, so for me to make the recommendation on page 50. Oh dear, where are we? 54? 54, yes. With the amendment on page 3 of the supplementary report. Would you like to say anything? Comment? Debate? Oh, I need a seconder. Oh, dear, dear, dear. Councillor Virgo, thank you. Seconder. Now, may I have any discussion of the item, please? Any points raised? Councillor no. Oh dear, Zaharuddin. No.
Nothing. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. And I will support this. I do have concerns that we're still allowing some quite deficient noise reports through here. You know, this sounds like a non-expert planning consultant has bought a £10 sound measuring device from Maplin and gone and stood on the corner of a field. That's not how we do these things, you know, and there are some deficiencies there. But, you know, I think on the basis that our EHO has been to site and considers the noise to be inaudible at the boundary, I apologise I wasn't able to attend the site visit myself on Saturday, but clearly other members likewise drew similar conclusions. So it seems fairly clear that there isn't a noise problem there. So I think on that basis, it's reasonable to approve this, as that was my main concern. I am still struggling to understand why, as a council, we're so reticent to apply ourselves a bit more forcefully around noise. I can't. I'm not quite understanding the assistant director's argument around why we can't amend the condition. I respect the view, but it you know. To me, it always feels reasonable if we're asking an applicant for a noise report and they give us a noise report that says we won't be any louder than this, why on earth can we not condition that? I see other councillors in my professional work on a very regular basis conditioning that. It's a very reasonable thing to do. If an applicant says we're not going to be any noisier than this, to impose a condition that says you can't be any noisier than you say seems a very reasonable thing to do. So I do find that a little bit frustrating, but I will support the application.
Thank you for that. Do you want to make a comment? Could we take a comment from the legal?
Hello. I was just going to say that I also have concerns about the reasonableness of such a condition. I don't know about what levels of noise are acceptable and how close that would have been in this case, but the usual channels, if there was a noise disturbance in the future and the levels increased to a level that resulted in a phone call or a conversation with the environmental agency or a referral to the environmental department at the council, then it would be reviewed then. And I'm not sure what the process is. Can I condition? Yeah, so it would just be dealt with under environmental legislation at that point. As a noise disturbance.
Thank you. Councillor Templeton.
Can I just reiterate that I stood beside this
generator though. I mean, because it had gravel and I had my wheeler, so I was immobile basically, so I couldn't walk around that thing. And I stood beside the generator and it was the sound of a tractor, and it's only going to run for however many minutes before it, or whatever, before it stops off, you know. So I was quite happy that it would not be a big issue if you were anywhere near that, and the houses were quite a long way away, and everybody else went to the other end of the barn and couldn't hear very much at all, and that's before the insulation's put in. So I think once the insulation's in, it will make a lot of difference, and I think there's a condition for 2 months it's got to be put in by that on this, so I'm happy to support this.
Thank you. Councillor Collins.
And just to add to that, I think the background noise of the stream, to be honest, was louder than the generator when we were stood in the corner of the site. I couldn't hear it at all, but my hearing's a bit dodgy anyway. But I will be supporting it.
Councillor Fresland.
Hi, I'll be supporting this application. I walked to the end of the boundary, and I heard it very, very faint start up of a machine, and it was very quiet. You could hear the stream over that, so I have no concerns for this. And I think going forward, if the generator were to be replaced in future, it would be more modern and quieter. So I'll be supporting this.
Anyone else? No? Then I'll have a small say. I note that neighbours, wherever they may be, have complained about noise from this site. It doesn't appear that it's the generator that's making that noise, but whatever noise it is, if it's a nuisance, they do have the right to call the council and complain and get it investigated if it really is a nuisance. You know, I mean, one-offs sometimes happen, don't they? But if it's a bad nuisance, then they need to call the council and we'll investigate. So I'm in support of the application as it is. Shall we take a vote? All those in favour?
That's unanimous, Chair, so the motion is carried.
Thank you very much. And that is the end of our meeting. Could we just sit quietly while the officer